I married for the second time at the age of 39. My wife, Emily, was many years younger than me, but with my mother-in-law, Patricia, we were almost the same age. Emily had been raised by her mother in a strict environment, and at the age of 23, she had only a vague idea of romantic intimacy, although she looked quite attractive and seductive. We never talked about intimacy before the wedding, but once the celebrations were over, we needed to mend our relationship. Despite my experience, this was a new situation for me and I was in unfamiliar territory. To make a long story short, things were very uncertain, and I had a lot of explaining to do about where, when, and how. It wasn't just about physical intimacy, but also about how we would build our life together. Emily was shy and indecisive, and I had to be patient. Once we had seen off the last of the relatives from our 3-day feast, Emily and I were finally alone in our room. I suggested we talk to her about our future together. Emily blushed after listening to my arguments, and finally agreed to my suggestions. After waiting for her mother to retire to the next room, I began to explain to Emily that these were our first steps toward marriage. I wanted her to feel comfortable and realize that this was a partnership in which we would grow together. Patricia divorced her husband 19 years ago, and seems to have harbored a deep resentment toward men ever since. She raised her daughter in a strict and modest manner and even dressed like an old grandmother whose figure was hard to tell anything from. She always wore long skirts and baggy sweaters and tied her hair in a tight bundle. When Patricia first met me, she greeted me with disdain, and I couldn't understand what I had done wrong. I tried my best to be polite and respectful, but it seemed that nothing I did could earn her approval. One evening, standing on the balcony with a cigarette, I overheard a conversation between Emily and her mother. "Mom, I can't remember everything he explains, so we're sleeping separately for now." "Emily, is it really that complicated?" "Mom, I have nothing to compare it to. If I had known before, I could have prepared myself. I'm inexperienced." "Emily, it's only the first time. You'll get used to each other and everything will be fine." "We'll see, Mom, but for now, let him sleep in my room for a while." Their conversation made me realize how much Emily was worried. She was trying her best, but the expectations placed on her were exorbitant. Later that evening, Patricia informed me of their arrangement, and as she spoke, our eyes met briefly. She smiled, though it was difficult to understand her expression. She seemed almost mocking, as if she knew something I didn't. From that day on, Patricia's demeanor toward me changed dramatically. She had a trendy short haircut and started wearing fitted jeans and skirts. She was unrecognizable. It was as if overnight she had shed her former self. I began to notice a different kind of attention from her, and more importantly, I saw her looking at me with a strange smile that seemed to linger for a long time. Emily's vacation flew by quickly, and soon she was back to work. I still had about a week and a half left before I was back to my normal routine. Emily worked as an operator in a neighboring town with a 24-hour schedule. This meant that she was often gone for the night, and I was left alone with Patricia. One evening, Patricia called me into the kitchen to talk about Emily, and I noticed a bottle on the table. This surprised me, as I had never seen Patricia drink. She said it was for a more casual conversation to better understand each other as mother-in-law and son-in-law. I didn't object and began pouring drinks. I was curious as to what she wanted to discuss and hoped that perhaps this was her way of extending an olive branch. Our conversation was unexpectedly casual and touched on deeper topics about life, relationships, and my role in her daughter's life. Patricia talked about her experiences, her failed marriage, and how she tried to shield Emily from the pain she was going through. She told me how hard it was for her to trust men, and how Emily's encounter with me stirred up old emotions. I listened to her, empathizing with her difficulties, and trying to assure her that I had Emily's best interests at heart. The more we talked, the more the tension between us seemed to dissipate. That evening, Patricia and I crossed the line, much to my surprise. I hadn't planned or expected it, but in that moment it felt like we both needed it. The unspoken understanding that we were both trying to find our place in a new family dynamic. From that point on, things went from bad to worse. Patricia became more relaxed around me, and even began to help me understand Emily better. She gave me advice on how to make Emily feel more comfortable and how to be patient with her. Things were great with Emily, and our closeness flourished. She began to open up more, and we started to really connect as a couple. Surprisingly, life at home with Patricia around seemed strangely pleasant, almost too good to be true. There was harmony in the house, and even though I knew that our secret with Patricia could complicate things, I couldn't deny that it brought us closer together in unexpected ways. Life is full of unexpected twists and turns, and now I was enjoying the peace that had settled into our home.